Imagine getting into a taxi cab and being kidnapped by the driver while also having a spat with your significant other. That is exactly what we get in the new Shudder original Black Cab. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing this brand new horror film, some spoiler-free thoughts to start off with, as well as giving it a number rating, and then a little bit later in the video we'll be getting into some spoilers. I'll throw a spoiler warning alert up on the screen for you guys who don't want to be spoiled by the movie, but for those who stick to the end, I've got some special treats for you. We'll also be reading some hilarious comments about the movie as well over on Shudder for a little cherry on top, so make sure to stick around to the end. This is a British indie supernatural slasher mystery suspense horror film, and it's directed by Bruce Goodison and written by Virginia Gilbert. The biggest draw to this film for horror fans will be that it stars Nick Frost from Shaun of the Dead and the rest of the Cornetto trilogy. Honestly, that's what initially drew me to the film. Frost also serves as a producer on the film, and he even added some writing to the script before filming. In an interview he did with Daily Dead, he said he was interested in this project because it's a slasher movie combined with supernatural and ghost elements. And though on paper that sounds like it's in favor of the movie, unfortunately it fails to live up to its potential. In Black Cab, we follow Anne, played by Synnove Karlsen, who had a small part in Last Night in Soho, and Patrick, who are having a bit of a spat when we're introduced to their relationship. After a night out with friends, they hail a cab driven by Ian, played by Nick Frost, and what starts out as a normal cab ride quickly turns menacing as Ian reveals that he's not simply taking Anne and Patrick home. We spend the movie on the edge of our seats as Anne and Patrick fight for their lives and try to escape the cab driver from hell. The movie has a very claustrophobic feeling as we're in one setting for most of the movie, just in this tiny little cab, and the ghost elements come in as kind of a reasoning behind this kidnapping, but if I say much more on that topic, it'll be kind of spoilery, so we'll get more into that a little bit later. I was fairly interested in the movie for like the first 30 minutes or so, but then it just got kind of repetitive, which is kind of inevitable when you have these characters in the same setting for so long. There's just only so much that you can do. One bone I'll throw to the movie is that our main character Anne makes some clever moves along the way to help people try and track and find them. The cinematography was fine in my eyes. They used these unique distorted lenses and framing to build this sense of mystery and hopelessness. But on that note, there was nothing super innovative or noteworthy stylistically about the movie. Maybe other than the fact that I'm one of those people that just can't help but scan every inch of the screen to try and look for like subtle spookiness in the background, and this movie actually had a lot of that. So I felt pretty proud of myself when I found those. The movie also wants you to hate looking at any sort of reflection, whether it be a mirror or a car window reflection, because they interject so many jump scares into these moments that involve these things. It could have worked a time or two, but it's just way overdone, and each time we see this ghostly figure, I swear the visual effects just get progressively worse each time. So definitely not impressed with the visual effects in this one at all. The payoff in this film is confusing to say the least, which is its biggest downfall. Maybe the last like 30 to 40 minutes, they try explaining the movie and just fail miserably. It appears that the director is trying to say something with the movie. There's supposed to be a bigger message here, but I can't put my finger on what it is. It's like saying so much that you're actually saying nothing. It feels like they just threw everything they could at the wall to see what would stick, and either nothing stuck or too much stuck, but either way, it just wasn't an impressive payoff. It feels like visually watching people play the telephone game where they're passing along this convoluted plot to the next person and just watching that unfold on screen, if that makes any sense. The movie currently sits at a 4.2 on IMDb, which isn't very favorable, but granted, it only has like a few hundred reviews so far. But I will say, honestly, that kind of lines up with how I would rate this movie. I think if I had to give it an honest rating, I would probably rate it something like a 5 out of 10. It's very middle of the road. I'm not intrigued to give it another watch. I don't really think I would recommend it to like a close family member or friend. It's just not impressive at all. Kind of felt like a waste of time. Like I said, maybe if the payoff or the bigger message could have been more clear, it would be a different story, but that's just not the case. The star of the show is obviously Nick Frost. He does a really good job of playing this duality of this character that we kind of feel sorry for and sympathize with, but is also like this sadistic, insecure killer who is obviously not a very good guy. Some of the themes they touch on in this movie are family, infidelity, relationships, children, and maybe along the lines of like abortion and miscarriage. Although, like I said, it's not very clear where they're trying to go, really. That's just a really mixed bag of messaging and emotions. I did feel intrigued to find out why this cab driver suddenly decided to kidnap this couple, but it dragged on just a little bit too long, even though, you know, the runtime of the movie is only like an hour and 20 something minutes, but it still felt too long, mostly because we're in this one setting. There's just so much you can do with it. It felt really long, could have been like a short film. And yeah, the only times that I really felt scared were during the jump scares, like very intentional, loud jump scares. Other than that, I didn't really feel like a sense of dread or being scared or anything like that. It definitely makes sense to me why this didn't get a theatrical release. It just went straight to Shudder. Again, it's a Shudder original, but it totally gives off like TV movie vibes. So again, I'm not surprised that it just went straight to Shudder. All right, so now we're going to get into some of the spoilers on the movie. So again, warning, if you haven't watched the movie and you want to still go see it and don't want to be spoiled, then go ahead and leave the video now and come back later. Otherwise, if you've already seen it or you just kind of want to hear more about this kind of shit show of a movie, welcome in. These are the spoilers. I have my laptop here because I kind of got sick of like typing, and so there's just kind of scatterbrained notes here, and I just want to go from my notes kind of in order here. And so yeah, we're just going to jump right into it. So yeah, Anne and Patrick are the couple that get kidnapped by Ian, the cab driver. Patrick is obviously a very overbearing and controlling fiance, and I feel like he gets away with a lot in this. They're at dinner with their friends, and Patrick like announces that they're going to get married and he's going to move in with Anne. And Anne's just kind of like obviously distraught, and like this is news to her as well. Her friend notices that she's like very like sad and obviously isn't excited about this news, and so she tries to intervene and fails, at which point they hail the cab driven by Nick Frost, and Patrick gently shoves her in.
Go on.
And again, the friends don't do anything and just let them go on their merry way. When we're introduced to the cab driver, Ian, we are kind of rooting for him. First, he's defending Anne against Patrick, who's obviously very controlling and potentially cheated on Anne. Ian even offers to kick him out of the cab a few times, which later on we realize is probably actually just so he could have Anne alone, and so it'd be easier to kidnap her and take her wherever he wants. But initially, you know, he's kind of being like very smart ass with Patrick and basically calling him out on his bullshit. They quickly do like a 180 on his character as he tases and incapacitates Patrick about 20-25 minutes into the movie, and then that's when you're like, oh shit, like we need to take this guy a little bit more seriously. He's not just a chatty little cab driver. So why is Nick capturing Anne and Patrick? About halfway through the film, he starts telling this ghost story that happens on Maybell Hill about this ghost. He starts talking about this local legend, and it's about a woman who died in a car accident one night while escaping her abusive husband, and she died on impact, but her little girl was left alone in the woods, crying for her mom, and eventually passing away in fear, out hungry and cold in the woods. And ever since then, this road that he's driving on has been haunted by that ghost. And I guess this is still so confusing in my head, but the ghost has been haunting him. So he encounters this ghost on this road one night as he's driving his cab, and he's scared shitless by the incident, and he like goes out and drinks to forget it and tries to tell his wife, but she doesn't believe him. And then it's very confusing whether his son is dead or alive, or if he's divorced from his wife, if he still lives with them. He says that he lives at this abandoned hotel, which is where he eventually takes Anne and Patrick. But again, he claims that the ghost says that she's going to take his son unless he's able to give her a different child. And Ian had previously given Anne a ride from the maternity hospital, so he assumed that she was pregnant, and so that's why he captured Anne and Patrick. Maybe it's a few days after he picked her up from the maternity hospital. The way they talk about it, the timeline is really weird because he talks about it as if it was like he picked her up a few months ago maybe, and she might barely remember him. She claims to not remember him picking her up at all, but if it happened like a few days ago, I feel like she would have said oh yeah, I remember you. So the timeline is wonky here already. And he has this abandoned hotel that he takes Anne and Patrick to, which it seems like it's been set up for living for a while now. And it's like, okay, how long has he been trying to avenge his son? Is his son dead? How long has this been happening? What is the freaking timeline for him to have this abandoned hotel that he's been going to frequently, apparently? And has he taken other people there before? We don't know. But he kind of talks about it like he's been doing it for a while. And I feel like to properly call this a slasher film, he has to kill at least 2 or 3 people. He does kill Patrick at one point. He slits his throat because he's trying to escape. But I digress. He's trying to sacrifice Anne's baby to the ghost to save his own son, is what he claims. So it's kind of like that question of what lengths would you go to save your own child. So yeah, we're led to believe that he's just basing this off of the fact that he's trying to save his son and his family. Whether that's true or not, we don't know, because again, they throw so much at us that it's hard to know what's real and what's not. There's a bunch of dream sequences of Anne dreaming of herself in the cab, and then we also flash back a couple times to her being in his cab after the maternity hospital, and so it's just a confusing blob of nothingness. Anne reveals to him at the end that she actually miscarried and that she lost the baby at the hospital, and she yells at the ghost lady and says that she took it, which doesn't make any sense. But yeah, the explanation can't be that only Nick is being haunted by the ghost lady, because even before dinner at the beginning of the movie, there's a ghost figure that is haunting Anne in her apartment or home, wherever she is. So she's already being haunted and encountering this presence before she even gets into Ian's cab, unless we're saying that because she was already in his cab, that's why the ghost is attached to her as well. I don't know. They don't explain any of this. Let's go back to my notes. I think that Ian and his wife were having troubles, and he kind of had this thought in passing of hurting his child to get back at his wife, and it was just a thought, and I think because he had that thought, the ghost infiltrated his mind and was saying that she threatening to hurt his child because he thought that, and so he was stricken with guilt because of that. And so that's also another explanation that's being given as to why he's being haunted by this ghost. They leave a lot up for interpretation here. So yeah, at the end of the film, Anne reveals that she lost her baby and she doesn't actually have a baby for Ian to sacrifice to this ghost. And so he's distraught. She blames the ghost for her miscarriage and she goes running off into the woods. And then Nick drives off, and somehow they her running path and his driving path intertwine, and he ends up hitting her, and he gets out of the car and goes around to see what happened, and she's gone, and then he drives away, and Anne's ghost is now in the back seat. And so that's how we end the movie, which, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it's kind of an origin story of the ghost of Maybelle Hill. She's supposed to be that ghost, but then it's just a weird cycle, a vicious cycle. That thought hadn't occurred to me until right now, that the legend of Maybelle Hill is that the woman was killed in a car accident, but then it also says that her daughter went off into the woods and then died. So maybe it doesn't line up exactly. So again, that's not a full explanation there either. So yeah, I just have here that the timeline gets wonky, which is totally true. Some of the sequences you're are we traveling in time? Is there what's happening with these dream sequences? Do they mean anything? And a lot of it just feels like it didn't mean much. I specifically wrote down, I'm not surprised it didn't get a theatrical release, as it totally gives off TV movie vibes. That's very accurate. And so yeah, again, depending on the timeline of when he first picked Anne up and dropped her off, and when he picked her up from the maternity hospital, did he just follow her around for months or weeks or days to find another opportune time to pick her up, and just was right there waiting whenever she needed him? It makes very little sense. Do you see all the plot holes so far? This is hurting my brain trying to make sense of this whole movie. So again, unless you want this same brain rot, don't go watch this movie. Don't go watch this movie. I think this review is plenty for anyone who might have any sort of interest in the movie. Yeah, it's confusing as to what things were shown actually happened, who's alive, who's dead at the end, and what the movie's really trying to say. Is it about grief? Is it about abortion, infidelity, familial troubles? It feels like it's swinging in a few different directions, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly what the messaging is. And because of that muddiness, it's just a complete miss in my book. So yeah, those are my spoiler thoughts on the movie. Just a little bit more into why I didn't like it. If you have any other thoughts, conflicting thoughts, or you have more of a clear understanding of the ending than me, please, by all means, drop them down below. I'd love to hear all that. All right, it's a good thing I checked the battery on my recorder, because I just realized that it died, so I had to replace the batteries. So I'm not sure where the audio is gonna sound like crap, but I hope you stick through that because I've still made some pretty good points through that audio. And so thank you for suffering through that for a little bit, but got back on. We're back on the good audio. All right, so now we're over on Shudder. We're gonna check out some of these fun reviews and ratings. I might drop one myself, and we're just gonna see what people are saying about the movie and go from there. The first 10 minutes are compelling, the rest not so much. I kind of stated that I was kind of into it for the first 20 to 30 minutes, and then just falls off. 10 minutes short, yeah, I said exactly that. Feature-length film, no. Would have been better as a horror short film. Nick Frost makes it compelling, but he can only do so much with such little content. Yeah, it's like I said, it's unfortunate that such great actors got poor writing because Nick Frost does a really good job of selling it for the most part, but it just really gets old and repetitive. A lot of people saying that it's boring, what a mess. One extra skull for Nick Frost, the ending is otherwise really lame. That was honestly the lamest ending ever. I agree, it's too confusing. Simply much too long. If it had been maybe 40 minutes or a 30-minute film, it would have hit harder and worked better. I totally agree. Long ride for a short content. Doesn't make sense. Great atmosphere, though. It didn't make sense to me either. This kind of made me feel dumb because I was like, is there something I'm missing here? What am I supposed to be getting from here? Nick Frost does what he can with a poop sandwich. D+. It's a slow burn ghost story. If you're looking for anything else, I would keep looking. Dry as a desert. Super slow. Wish I had that time back. Yikes. Some people gave it 5 stars. Very good film. Great acting. Fuck Patrick, though. Patrick was a douchebag. Very good film. I don't know. These people gave it 5 skulls. 5 out of 5. Let's see. Low quality camera choices. I didn't really find too much issue with the quality of the picture or anything. Nick Frost was great, but the story was pants. Boring as fuck. Every now and again, the British make a great film. This one isn't very now and again. Great performance from Nick Frost, otherwise it's rubbish. That was a poo movie. I'm very disappointed, Nick. Poop emoji. Unfortunately, Nick Frost playing against type couldn't save this stinker. Okay, I think they're saying that he's usually a funny character, and this one was a bit different. It was certainly experimental, and you know, like I've said in other reviews, I like when I'm enjoying that filmmakers are taking chances and being experimental, but sometimes it just falls flat. And this is another one of those moments. And those are all of the reviews that we've gone through so far. So there we go. We are finally at the end of this movie review. Thank goodness. I am kind of sick of talking about it already. Let me know if you've seen this movie, if you went and saw it after my review, and what you thought of it. I'd love to hear some counter arguments to what I've said already. It's just kind of a boring film, very messy, confusing, and starts off good. Should have been a short film. Nick Frost is the star, and yeah, it's just time that I wish I had gotten back. This is a Shudder original. Thinking of doing a movie before the end of the year, ranking the 2024 Shudder originals. Let me know if you'd be interested in that video at all. And also, if you ever have a specific movie that you want me to review or a certain topic that you want me to cover, always feel free to drop those in the comments as well. I do look at every comment, so if you have an idea, I'd love to hear it. Thanks for stopping by. You've been watching the Nonstop Horror YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe for more fun, exciting, and informative horror content all year long, and I'll see you in the next one.